The distress beacon had stopped transmitting 3 weeks ago. Nora wiped the sweat from her brow, her hands stained with synthetic lubricant and alien blood. Outside the crashed scout ship, the twin sons of Curvathnine beat down mercilessly on the copper-colored sand dunes that stretched endlessly in every direction. She should have been dead by now. Everyone at the Galactic Mechanics Guild had told her that humans were too fragile for deep space salvage work, too soft. It's too weak, too dependent on their precious oxygen-rich atmospheres. But Nora had proven them wrong for 5 years, fixing ships in conditions that would make a Krillian engineer's chitin crack. This time, though, the universe had finally called her bluff. The crash had been violent. A meteor strike had sheared through the port stabilizer, sending her small vessel spiraling into Curvathnine's atmosphere like a burning comet. She'd managed to control the descent just enough to avoid complete obliteration, but the ship was done. Reactor dead. Communications array scattered across 3 square kilometers. Life support running on emergency batteries that wouldn't last another week. And then there was Riker. Nora descended the makeshift ramp she'd constructed from cargo panels, carrying a container of water she'd painstakingly extracted from the ship's recycling system. The massive form lay in the shadow of the vessel's hull, the only place offering respite from the brutal heat. Riker was a Drachnir, one of the ancient starfaring species that had ruled this sector long before humans had even discovered fire. His kind resembled the dragons from Earth's mythology, massive reptilian bodies, covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water, powerful limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, and wings that could carry them through the void of space itself. They were warriors, explorers, philosophers, beings of immense power and pride. The meteor that had struck Nora's ship had struck Riker's vessel moments earlier. She'd found him in the wreckage of his own craft 2 kilometers away. His spine severed by a support beam, his wings shattered beyond repair. By all rights, she should have taken what supplies she could carry and left him to die. Resources were finite. Rescue was uncertain. Every calculation screamed that saving herself was the only logical choice, but Nora had never been particularly good at logic when it came to leaving people behind. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, kneeling beside the dragon's massive head. Riker's eyes brilliant gold, with vertical slits opened slowly. "Still paralyzed," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Still a burden you should abandon. And still terrible at small talk," Nora replied, helping him drink. The Drachnir's tongue was too thick, his throat too damaged to manage the water on his own. It was a humiliating process for a creature that had once soared between stars. Nora tried to make it as quick and dignified as possible. They'd had this argument every day for the past 73 days. Riker insisted she take the remaining emergency beacon and strike out for the planetary equator, where her scans suggested a higher chance of finding water and possibly edible vegetation. The beacon had enough power for one person to carry in a broadcast for several weeks, more than enough time for a rescue ship to triangulate her position. But it wasn't enough power to broadcast from a stationary position while also keeping Riker's medical pod functioning. If she left, he would die within days. "Your species is illogical," Riker said, as he did every day. "One life for another. These are not favorable mathematics." "My species doesn't reduce people to math problems," Nora shot back, checking the medical readouts on the jury-rigged device she'd constructed from ship components. His vitals were stable, but barely. The paralysis was permanent without surgery in a proper medical facility. The pain management system she'd cobbled together was working, but it was running on salvaged power cells that wouldn't last forever. She'd already cannibalized everything non-essential from both crash sites. The ships had become skeletons of their former selves, stripped down to basic frames. She'd built solar collectors from reflective panels, moisture traps from ventilation systems, and a shelter from cargo containers. Every day was a puzzle of resource management and creative engineering, and every day, Riker's condition grew marginally worse. "In my culture," the dragon said quietly, "there is a word Kreshenak. It means the stubbornness of small things. It is not a compliment." Nora laughed despite herself. "In my culture, We have a phrase, humanity. Fuck yeah. It means we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Accurate, Riker agreed, and she could hear the faint rumble of amusement in his chest. The truth neither of them spoke. Aloud was this: Nora wasn't just staying because of some noble human instinct. She was staying because over the past 2.5 months, the paralyzed dragon had become her friend. They'd shared stories during the long, cold nights when Kervathnein's temperature plummeted. Riker had told her about flying through nebulae, worlds where entire civilizations lived in orbital rings around dying stars. Nora had told him about Earth, about oceans and forests, about the stubborn little species that refused to accept limitations. They'd argued about engineering philosophy, debated the nature of consciousness, and discovered a shared appreciation for extremely dark humor about their situation. Leaving him would feel like leaving a piece of herself behind. On the 98th day, the miracle happened. Nora was performing her daily scan of the horizon when she saw it, a glint of metal moving against the rust-colored sky. Her hands shook as she activated the emergency beacon, pouring every remaining joule of power into its signal. The rescue ship, a massive Galactic Coalition cruiser, landed 3 hours later. The medical team rushed to Riker first, their scanners taking in his condition with professional efficiency. The captain, a grizzled Xanthari with cybernetic implants covering half his face, approached Nora. "Mechanic Nora Chen," he said, reading from his datapad. "Your emergency beacon was flagged 98 days ago. Standard protocol says survivors should have been recovered within 40 days or declared lost." He looked up at her. What the hell happened? Nora gestured to Riker, who was being carefully loaded onto a medical transport platform. "I had a passenger." The captain's eyes widened as he processed what she meant. "You stayed for 3 months with a paralyzed Draconeer?" It wasn't a question. "Yeah." He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "Humans," he muttered. "Absolutely insane." From the medical transport, Riker's voice rang out, weak but clear. "Kreshenak." Nora grinned. "Fuck yeah." Later, after they'd been safely transported to the medical bay and Riker had been rushed into surgery, the captain found Nora in the observation deck. He handed her a drink, something blue and fizzy that burned pleasantly. "The Draconeer will recover," he said. "Full spinal reconstruction. He'll fly again in 6 months." Nora nodded, relief washing through her. "He told the medical staff something interesting," the captain continued. "Said that when he returns to his homeworld, he's going to tell the Council of Wings about the human mechanic who refused to let him die. Apparently, that's going to cause quite a stir." "Good stir or bad stir?" "The kind that makes allies," the captain said. "The Draconeer don't give their loyalty easily, but when they do, it's permanent." He paused. "You may have just changed diplomatic relations between our species." Nora sipped her drink and looked out at the stars. "I just didn't want my friend to die alone." The captain raised his glass. "To humans, then, the galaxy's most frustratingly compassionate species." "To humans," Nora agreed, "who apparently don't know when to quit." Somewhere in the medical bay, a dragon dreamed of flying again, and knew he owed his wings to the stubborn determination of humanity's refusal to abandon those in need.